On September 26, 1983, a Soviet alarm went off telling one man that nuclear missiles were already in the air. He had 10 minutes to decide if World War III had just started. I hope you brought snacks. Get ready to ride this timeline. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand just how close to the edge the world already was. 1983 was arguably the most dangerous year of the entire Cold War. Not the Cuban Missile Crisis, 1983. And most people have no idea. It started in March when President Reagan stood in front of a room full of evangelical ministers and called the Soviet Union an evil empire and the focus of evil in all the modern world. The Soviets heard that speech. Soviet leader Yuri Andropov called it outrageous military psychosis. These were not two sides talking to each other. These were two nuclear powers convinced the other one was preparing to strike first. Then in September, just 3 weeks before our story, a Soviet fighter jet shot down a Korean passenger plane that had drifted off course into Soviet airspace. All 269 people on board were killed, including an American congressman. Reagan called it a massacre. The Soviets called it necessary defense of their borders. The world called it catastrophe. By the time September 26th rolled around, Soviet military intelligence was running a top-secret global operation called Project Ryan. KGB agents stationed in every major Western city, watching for any sign that America was preparing a nuclear-first strike. They were looking for things like whether blood banks were suddenly being stocked, whether political leaders were being moved into bunkers, whether the lights of the Pentagon were staying on all night. They were that scared, and that paranoid, and that ready to shoot back. Into this powder keg walked Stanislav Petrov. Petrov was 44 years old, a lieutenant colonel in the Soviet Air Defense Forces. But here's what made him different from almost everyone else in that bunker. He was not a career military man. He was a software engineer. He had actually helped write the code for the early warning satellite system he was now monitoring. He understood not just what it was supposed to do, but how it could fail. That night he was covering someone else's shift. It was not even supposed to be him. Just after midnight, every alarm in the bunker went off simultaneously. The screens lit up with a single word: launch. The system reported one American intercontinental ballistic missile inbound from a base in Montana, and then 4 more behind it. The bunker erupted. People were running, shouting. Everyone was looking at Petrov. Because here's how Soviet nuclear doctrine worked. It was called launch on warning. The moment confirmed missiles were detected, the Soviet response was supposed to be immediate and massive. You don't wait to get hit. You hit back before the missiles arrive. The entire system was designed for one thing: speed. And right now, the system was screaming at Petrov to pick up that phone and report it to the chain of command. He did not pick up that phone. Petrov had about 10 minutes before the reported missiles would theoretically strike Soviet soil. 10 minutes to decide the fate of the planet. He had no proof the warning was wrong, none. The system was showing high confidence. His entire training said report it. Every other officer in that building was expecting him to report it, but something was not adding up. He knew from his own training that an American first strike would be massive. Hundreds of missiles launched simultaneously to knock out Soviet retaliatory capability before they could respond. 5 missiles made no military sense whatever. 5 missiles would not even dent the Soviet arsenal. Why would America start World War III with 5 missiles? And then the ground radar, the backup system, the one that should have been picking up missiles rising from the horizon. It showed nothing. The satellite system was new. Petrov knew it had problems. He knew it was not fully reliable. And he knew that the message had passed through 30 layers of verification suspiciously fast. So he made a decision that no training manual in the world could have prepared him for. He picked up the phone, not to report a missile launch, but to report a false alarm. And then he sat there, waiting, sweating, watching the clock. He said later, "I knew perfectly well that nobody would be able to correct my mistake if I had made one." He was correct. The alarm was false. The satellites had picked up a rare alignment of sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds and mistaken it for heat signature of a missile launch. A glitch, a trick of light. That's all that stood between humanity and nuclear war. Here's where the story gets truly infuriating. Petrov's superiors investigated the incident. They acknowledged he had made the right call. One general praised his correct actions and told him he would be rewarded. He wasn't. Instead, he was quietly reassigned to a less sensitive post. The reason was ugly. If Petrov was officially rewarded, the scientists and military officials who had built the flawed satellite system would have to be officially punished, and nobody wanted that. So the whole incident was buried, classified, like it never happened. Petrov took early retirement. He went home to a small apartment in a suburb outside Moscow. For years, he told nobody what happened, not his colleagues, not his friends. His wife knew something was wrong because he came home a broken man and spent months unable to function, but never told her why. When he finally did tell her years later, she looked at him and asked, "So what did you do?" His reply was simple: "It was my job." The world did not find out until 1998, 15 years later, when the general who first heard Petrov's report that night revealed the story publicly. By then, Petrov was in his late 50s, living quietly, largely forgotten. He did eventually receive some recognition late in life, a documentary, a Peace Prize in Germany, a small award in New York, where the former United Nations Secretary General said he deserved humanity's profound gratitude. Petrov stood there, an old man, slightly bewildered by the attention. He died May 2017 at the age of 77. His death went unnoticed for months before anybody thought to announce it. Here's the thing about Petrov that keeps me up at night. He was not a hero by training. He was not a general making a grand strategic decision. He was a tired engineer working someone else's midnight shift, armed with nothing but common sense and courage to trust it when every system around him was screaming otherwise. One man, one gut call, 10 minutes, 8 billion people alive today who will never know his name. And 6 weeks after Petrov's false alarm, the world nearly ended again when a NATO war exercise called Able Archer convinced the Soviets that a real nuclear strike was actually underway. But that's another story for another video and another timeline. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Come ride this timeline with me again, friends. Leave a comment. Let's discuss some history.